Daredevil Born Again, which is easily the best MCU Disney Plus live action series because all the others kind of suck, and was retroactively turned into a continuation of the Netflix Daredevil show through a very obvious creative overhaul midway through shooting, just finished its first season about a week ago. And after watching it, I of course got to reminiscing about the Netflix era of Marvel shows in a time before Disney Plus. So I thought, you know what, it might be fun to not only talk about this show, but to also go back and look at all the other Netflix Marvel shows, talking about them alongside the Born Again series. So let's rewind the clock back to 2015 and just see how this whole different era of Marvel television was. The first of the Netflix Marvel shows is Daredevil, which is easily the best of the bunch. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that the reason the whole era of Netflix Marvel television is even so popular is due to this series here. Daredevil follows lawyer by day, vigilante by night Matt Murdock, who after receiving enhanced senses at the cost of his sight in a chemical accident as a child, and receiving training from another weird blind man named Stick, suits up to fight crime with a less than healthy side of Catholic guilt haunting him along the way. There are two big reasons why this show is so highly regarded. The first, and this is a very basic generalized answer, very subjective, is that it's just a well-made show. The acting is great, the visuals are great, the music is great, it doesn't hold back, characters evolve, the side characters are likable, and the villains are threatening. There's no gimmicks, alright? It's just, it does what it does, and it does it very well. The only time I'd say that the show really falters is in its second season, where they try to juggle two completely different storylines, with the Punisher, who just then gets sidelined halfway through in favor of Elektra and the Hand, who are these kind of just boring ninja characters, if I'm gonna be honest. But the second reason the show works so well is that on top of Daredevil being a cool character, is that he's a character with a lot of depth and a lot of things going on with him. He's blind, but his enhanced senses make the typical violent vigilante antics a bit more interesting. He's Catholic, but he's very violent. He's a lawyer, but goes against the law as a superhero. All these contradictions give him a far deeper internal conflict than many other superhero characters, and as a result, it becomes very interesting watching his journey over the years and how he tries to balance these extremely volatile components of himself. It's just, I think that's what makes this show so compelling for many others as well, is that not only is it a well-made show, but Daredevil himself is just a very interesting character. If I was to give this show one of my very subjective ratings, I'd say it's great. The highest of the ratings that I came up with. And putting it on a tier list with the other shows, you know it's got to go all the way up in S tier. Also, I'm ranking and reviewing these if I didn't mention that already. Spinning off from Daredevil Season 2 is the Punisher's own series, and it's okay, I guess. It's not really bad, but I don't think it's that great either. The big problem that I have with the show is that it feels almost reluctant to be a Punisher show a lot of the time, and that's kind of one of the bigger problems with these series is the reluctance to live up to the source material, but I'll talk about that more later. But for instance, in this series, both seasons have him starting off like semi-retired, which is very weird for a character like the Punisher who will literally do anything but retire. His sole mission in life is to just murder criminals over and over again because that's his war on crime. He also rarely wears the skull logo, which isn't going to ruin the show, but given that it's his main piece of iconography and he has access to it pretty much any time, it is odd that he doesn't wear it that much. There's also the fact that his origin story is overcomplicated into this grand conspiracy that resulted in his former Marine friends killing his family instead of a random shootout that got them killed. And I think this makes his war on crime too focused on like a specific group of characters and kind of takes away the importance of Frank Castle killing any and all criminals in his never-ending war that clashes with so many other superheroes. I feel like the Punisher worked a lot better in Daredevil when he had somebody to go up against. You know, their ideals are clashing. He's just like so many other superheroes with a costume and a code name and going after bad guys, but you know, his moral compass clashing with those other characters. But I don't know. I just think this series, it just didn't really have that much going for it. I guess I would say it's okay, and I'm gonna put it in C tier. I don't know. I didn't think it was very special, honestly. Jessica Jones, on the other hand, trades in the superhero-y stuff for grounded detective work, even though she does have some vaguely defined superpowers she received after an accident that killed her whole family. She deals with a lot of trauma, okay? That's a big theme of the show. And I think that's actually the show's greatest strength, because instead of focusing on the same types of vigilante behavior that all these other shows do, we get a closer look at the civilian life and the kind of traumatic things that can happen to the people on the streets of New York. She tried to be a superhero once, but that ended badly, and that's where the villain of season 1 comes in, who's Kilgrave. Easily the best villain of the show, and one of the best in all the Netflix series. Kilgrave has superpowers himself, and he has the ability to mind control anyone by simply telling them to do something. The thing is, though, I think the show takes a nosedive after the first season when he's gone. I don't find any of the other villains compelling, nor do I really find the side characters in this show that interesting. And it's not that the show is bad, it's just that I can't really remember a majority of what happens even after writing things down. Like, the first season, great, thought it was really good. It's the definitive Jessica Jones story. And then I feel like the other 2 seasons, I know I'm being very vague, they kind of just don't really know much of what to do with this character. In the second season, her mom comes back and her like memories are all messed up and she has superpowers, but then she dies. And then her best friend Trish, who sometimes just sounds Australian, she becomes evil in the third season. She goes crazy and then they fight each other and it just kind of ends. Luke Cage is in it though. That's cool, but only the first season, so I feel like he should have stuck around, but I'll talk more about him momentarily. I just think the show is really interesting in the first season, but then after that, it's just not even bad. Like, it's a well-made show. It's just, I really can't think of anything that's like, wow, this is super interesting and noteworthy. So I think overall, the first season's really good, but the other 2, not so much. So I'm going to say overall, the show is okay, and I'm going to put it in B tier. Spinning off from Jessica Jones is Luke Cage's show. And you know what? I kind of wish these 2 shows were combined. I think the relationship he has with Jessica and what she could have offered to the plot of this show would have been very interesting, but oh well. They wanted to keep them separate. They wanted to give every character their own individual series. But anywho, I think Luke Cage's greatest strength is not his bulletproof skin and super strength that he received during an experiment while falsely imprisoned, which, side note, let me just say, there are so many accidental superheroes. What is up with that? Anyway, I think the greatest strength this show has is the sense of community that it creates in this world of Harlem that features throughout Luke's friendly neighborhood activities and trying to make the place better, you know, dealing with organized crime and even some superpowered baddies as well, but not just, you know, beating up bad guys, but just trying to make the neighborhood a better place. You know, while Daredevil's punching ninjas or whatever and Jessica Jones is investigating criminals, Luke is trying to, like, interact with the people and make the place better, and I think that makes for a really good show. I actually think this show overall is better than Jessica Jones. I like it. I don't think it's quite the heights of Daredevil, but as much as I think this show has the same strengths as the others through its acting and visuals and music and all of that, I think it's a well-made show. I do think it has some of its weaknesses as well. The first one being that it's oftentimes reluctant to be like the comics. And there are too many episodes. Those are really the 2 big problems I have with the Netflix shows overall. You really see that in like Daredevil season 1, where he just doesn't get his red costume until the very last episode of the first season. Or the Purple Man, Kilgrave, and Jessica Jones not actually being a purple-skinned man. He just wears a very dark purple suit. And then more stuff I'll talk about with Iron Fist. That's where it really gets bad. But even in this show, Luke Cage is known for wearing a yellow shirt, and he rarely wears a yellow shirt. And I know that's such a small detail, but it's really annoying. It's like he has to earn his yellow shirt. Like, it's a yellow shirt. Just let him wear the yellow shirt. The much bigger problem is the fact that there are too many episodes in these Netflix shows. I know I'm rambling a lot, but man, it just kind of goes on for too long. 13 episodes is way too long, and each of these shows end up having filler episodes to some degree. And I think that's where I don't want to say boredom, but like the lack of remembering everything that happens, because it's so many episodes. Like, these don't need to be 13 episode seasons. I just think that's one of the issues. But I don't really have much to say about this show in particular. I think it's a well-made show. I think it has the same weaknesses as the others, but it also has the same strengths. Overall, I'm going to say this is a good show. I think it's good. I'm going to give it my good rank, and I'm going to put it in A tier. What is easily the worst of the shows is Iron Fist. That problem of being reluctant with its source material is at its most present here, to the point that I'd say they were just straight up afraid of adapting the Iron Fist character. They always obscure his mythical origins. His Iron Fist is just his hand that glows a little bit. He never wears the costume. All the bad guys are just people in suits. It's just boring. When you have Iron Fist, the mystical martial arts guy, we want some cool mystical martial arts stuff, not this toned-down melodrama with bad action scenes. At least this second season has the decency of being shorter. It's not 13 episodes as far as I remember. They all kind of blur together. It has slightly better action and a more personal villain with Davros, who's the guy who grew up with Iron Fist. But still, it's just not very good. It's drawn out. It's afraid of the cool magical elements of the character, and is supposed to be an action-heavy show with little action that is poorly handled. It's not good. In fact, it's bad, and I'm going to throw it in F tier. The most standout moment of this show is when the villain of the first season kills some guy over ice cream. That made me laugh, but the show is not good. With all these different Marvel Netflix series releasing around the same time, you just knew they were going to do a big crossover event. After the final season of each show and the first 2 seasons of Daredevil, with the exception of The Punisher, they all cross over into one little miniseries titled The Defenders. And it's not very good, to be honest. It focuses too much on the superhero-y part of these characters instead of the grounded personal stuff that makes each of these shows work. It trades realistic character dramas for a so-so superhero conflict that doesn't even relate to Jessica Jones or Luke Cage at all. It's mostly a continuation of Daredevil and Iron Fist, but instead of just being like a little crossover between those two characters, it just has all 4 of them here in something that feels kind of out of place. Maybe if the crossover was a conflict that actually related to all 4 of these characters in a meaningful way, it could have been more interesting than them just fighting bland ninjas. And for a show that was, the big and only time all 4 of these characters kind of show up together with, Luke Cage is in the first season of Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist does have a cameo in Luke Cage season 2. It all just kind of feels like a waste, unfortunately. Maybe if they just combined all 4 of the shows into one ongoing series, it could have been better. Maybe that would be too much. I don't know. It was a meh kind of show, so I'm going to give it my rating of meh. It wasn't that great, and I'm going to put it in D tier, unfortunately. I think the shows just are kind of better on their own, except Iron Fist sucks. That finally brings us to Daredevil Born Again. After Daredevil appeared as a cameo in Spider-Man No Way Home and for one episode of She-Hulk, as well as the Kingpin appearing in some other stuff too, I don't really know, I've given up on watching the MCU at this point, we finally have the return of the Netflix series. But it almost wasn't that way. This was going to just be a new show that kind of didn't really continue the Netflix series, but brought back those 2 actors. But I guess at some point filming, they're like, hey, the direction of this show is not good. We need to change things around. So that's what they did, and you can really feel it when watching this show, that this is very disjointed tonally and pacing-wise at a lot of points, and it just feels weird. But hopefully they're going in a more positive direction. There's things about this show I don't like. I'm not a fan of the way it looks. There's too much CGI in the action scenes. I think it's really hard to believe that the Kingpin could become mayor, but I guess it's not too unrealistic given the real political world that we exist in. I think it's weird how there's such an emphasis on Daredevil being retired and whatnot when there's like a million other heroes in the MCU, but I guess it's a rights issue. I doubt you're ever going to see Spider-Man show up in this. And I don't know why we had to do the whole Matt Murdock gives up on being Daredevil and has to get back into the game kind of thing when Season 3 pretty much did that. It's not all bad, though. I am happy that it's now a continuation of the Netflix series, and you could really feel that in the last couple episodes, especially the finale was maybe the darkest finale to any of these shows. Whatever rework they did halfway through this show was the right thing to do, because I think the things that were part of the original version, like all the new side cast, which I can't even remember their names, the new visual style, all of that just didn't really do it for me. But the stuff that was reminiscent of the original Daredevil series, which is the best series that Marvel has ever put out, live action at least, I think all that's great. So what do I think overall of Daredevil Born Again? Well, it's only the first season, so it's kind of hard to tell, and it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I don't really know what direction we're going in. It's kind of incomplete at the moment, but I would say overall, it's okay. and I would put it in C tier. It's not as good as the original, but I'm excited to see where it goes. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 releasing next year. I think the odds of the entire Marvel Netflix era returning in full force is pretty high. But looking back, were those shows really that good to begin with? Well, kinda, yeah. I think they definitely suffered from trying too hard to be realistic at times and having way too many episodes, but I think each of these series have plenty of strengths as well. They cover real issues like religion, abuse, community, PTSD. They show so many sides of the people living in the city, creating a living, breathing environment, whereas the MCU films never really take a look at things on the ground level. Most of the time, the shows look great, the music is good, and the characters are compelling, even if things do feel dragged out a lot of the time. I don't think Born Again Season 1 was the best, but given that they have a clear direction for Season 2, I'm hopeful that the show will be good, and maybe we'll see some of the other characters return as well, and maybe they can improve the problems that those shows had. But I don't know. What about you? What do you think of these Defenders Marvel shows, the Netflix stuff that isn't on Netflix anymore? I think they're pretty much all better than the recent Disney Plus MCU series, so that's something. But let me know in the comments, and I'll see y'all next time. Until then, take care.